Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. Well, I want to apologize to you right off the bat because you get to accompany me today while I work on a rather nasty task. So this is a combination rose and perennial garden, and it's a beautiful place normally, but this time of year it doesn't look so great. And that's because I leave a lot of seed heads from the perennials for birds to eat during the winter months because it's an important source of nutrition for them. So today I thought it would be interesting to show you the process I go through and also how to prune roses, because everybody needs to know that, right? So let's get started. Now before we get started, I wanted to show you something really cool. Look at this beautiful rock garden iris. I planted these bulbs last fall and I've been so anxious for them to come up. Well, this is the very first one. So this is Iris hystrioides and the cultivar is Catherine Hodgkin. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? Now they're only 4 inches tall and they do grow in zones 5 to 9. But I've been seeing them on Instagram and on other social media, and I thought I have got to grow those. Now let me show you one other cool bulb that's growing in here. Now this is Pushkinia, all of these here, and they haven't opened yet, but when they do, they're pretty spectacular. They are the most heavenly shade of pale blue, and I definitely will show you this once they open. But I've got these poked in here and there in this bed. That means I need to be careful where I do any digging and walking, so I'm going to be real cautious about that. Now I've got some real challenging lighting conditions, so I'm going to do the best I can. But the sun is just in that spot in the sky where no matter where I am, I'm going to be casting a lot of shadows. But I'm not complaining because boy does it feel nice and warm on my back, and we've been having some beautiful weather lately. I wanted to point out this plant here. So this is a perennial, and it is a gorgeous salmon-colored oriental poppy. And you know, a lot of these perennials are so easy to clean up in the spring because you can just gently pull on them and all of the dead foliage comes very easily. But if you're cleaning up a perennial and it is seeming like it's a little unstable, maybe the roots are a bit compromised or just not very strong, I would use pruners to carefully cut off the foliage. But I love perennials that come up really easily without any equipment. And that's all I need to do to that. So here's a perennial that does need to be cut back rather than for me to pull on the stems and leaves. And of course, at the moment, because I'm on the spot, I cannot remember for the life of me which one that is. But just take my word for it, it's a perennial. So I'm going to use these little Fiskars plant snips because this is not really tough foliage and it's a very easy way to cut it back. So you just have to kind of go one by one with your plants and see how easily you can cut back the foliage, or if it's something that's so loose you can easily pull it just up off the ground. The main thing is you're wanting to get that old foliage out of the way so that the new growth can come through easily. Clean it up a little bit here. That's better. Well, I've come to the first rose, and this one is a beauty. This is called Queen of Sweden. It's a David Austin rose, and it has gorgeous, full, light pink blossoms, and it blooms its heart out. I love this rose. Now, some of this is going to be hard for you to see. I'm going to do the best I can. But I wanted to point out, first of all, that because I am in USDA hardiness zone 5B, we have very cold winters. And so what I've done as I've chosen roses over the years is I always go with non-grafted or own root roses. That means they don't have a graft, which can be very susceptible to winter kill. Now the concept with grafted roses is that rose breeders will take a really hardy rootstock and then graft a certain variety of rose on the top. And what I've done is I've gone with ones that are growing on their own roots, and so that means they're super hardy. And even if they die back down to the ground during the winter, you can cut it back and it still will come up. It would be very unusual for them not to recover. So as I'm looking at this rose, I'm seeing some canes, which are these upright branches, with a few problems. I've got one here that is quite brown all the way down. I see some with some red blotches at certain points, and I see some that look rather black. So what I would recommend doing when you're pruning your roses is to stop and take a look at the whole thing overall, and then prune off what looks dead to you first, and then go kind of on a case-by-case basis with each cane. So let me show you some close-ups so that you can see what I'm looking at. Now I know it's hard to do close-ups, but what you're looking for are green stems, green canes. You'll notice how purple this one is. This is going to have to come off down below here. See how black this one is. And then there's another stem. Well, I thought I could get to it for you, but this one is extremely black and blotchy. So you really are looking for nice green canes. Now if you have a nice green cane and then you get down to a certain point and there's a big red blotch on it, you want to prune it back below there. So I'm going to see what I can salvage on here. Here's the brown one. And I also will know that this plant will come back just fine. So I might have to do some pretty radical pruning. It really surprises me that there's this much damage on this rose. But we had kind of a weird winter, not a lot of snow, which can be very insulating for plants. And it seemed kind of mild, but we did have some real chilly temperatures. So it might have been just a bit too much for it. Okay, I'm trying to get myself situated here so you can see what I'm doing and hopefully not cast any shadows on the plant. But here's that cane that is real brown and some blotchy things right here. So I'm actually going to prune this cane back this low. And I know that always seems so drastic, but it's necessary. This cane, you see how black it is? You know, I've got these nice green parts up here, but if the base is black, it is dead or dying. So I'm going to have to cut it very low. Oh, I just hate doing that. Okay, this one, see there's a blotch there. Golly, this was a bad winter. Who would have thought? First of all, I'm just getting rid of that. So I think what I can do on this one, well, I'm going to prune it down to here. Another thing I want to mention is when you are pruning back a rose and you have a part of a cane that you're leaving, it's always important to choose where you make your cut. So for example, if this one was salvageable, and I see that it isn't because there's a big red blotch down here, but let's say this is a good one, you want to choose one where you can see a bud coming out that's going away from the center of the plant. So you need to keep that in mind as well. I have to say, as I'm looking at this, most of the canes are going to have to go. What a shame. I'll have to do a follow-up though to show you that it is going to come back. This one is also dead. This is amazing. Okay, so I'm looking at this one. Yeah, I've got some growth up here. I'm pretty sure it's not gonna make it. And off it goes. Wow, I didn't pick a very good rose as an example, did I? Because this one has got all sorts of problems. Look at this cane, is awful. So it has to go. And this one, you know, it's hard to tell, to be honest. But what I could do, in case it's going to send out some leaves, which would allow the plant to conduct photosynthesis, which means generate energy for the plant to grow, what I might do for now, just to see, is to prune it back a little bit, but possibly give it the opportunity to put on a few leaves. But yeah, it doesn't look good. Darn it. But again, with a non-grafted rose, I am 99% sure this is going to come back up new from the base, and it will bloom this year. So not all is lost, and that's one of the reasons I am so in favor of growing non-grafted roses. They are so hardy. Let's pick another rose just so you can see maybe something more normal. Now this rose looks a whole lot better. So this one is Munstead Wood. It is a gorgeous red David Austin English rose. And as I look here, the canes look really good. You might see that they are absolutely lethal when it comes to thorns. So all I'm going to do, I have a little branch here that is trying to head towards the center of the plant, so I'm removing that. I've got some crossing, which you can't see, on the back side here, so I'm going to take care of that. Oh, it doesn't want to cut. There we go. This teeny little one has some blotchy parts, so I'm going to take that off. And let me see if I can bring in the camera a little bit closer to help you see what I'm doing. Okay, I don't know if that's any better, but hopefully it is. So on here you can see some old rose hips. That's nothing to worry about because that's just normal. I left them on there. But I do see kind of a blotchy area here and here on the cane. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it back to the point where it splits and branches out this way. Anything growing out this way is perfectly fine. And the same thing on here. It's so hard to look in the light. I'm going to cut this back. I can see there's a little bud out here that's going to go that way. So I'm going to prune right above it. And where this splits, I see a little bit of red blotchiness, so I'm going to cut that off. Here's another one that looks pretty darn good, but I'm going to prune it just above a nice healthy sprout. This one looks pretty good. And then here's a couple more canes that have some rose hips on them. They've kind of died back to here. And what I'm going to do is just prune above a healthy bud that's coming out that is not heading into the center of the plant. Same thing here. Although I'm not too sure where I want to send that one. I think I'm going to take it all the way down to here because I like where the bud is pointing down lower on the branch. This one also has died back from the tip, which is quite normal. And so I'm following the cane down to where there is a nice bud going this way. Well, actually, I changed my mind. I'm going to take that whole cane off here. Branch of a cane. There we go. Whoops. Okay. On the back side, I'm just going to do the same things. I see some old rose hips, and I'm going to get rid of how we have some crossing branches here and trim anything back that has died to where there is a nice sprout that is heading outward from the plant rather than pointing in towards the center. Now before I can get to some more roses, I've got a few more perennials to move out of the way. And in general, what I like to do with coneflowers, which is this one, this is green twister, which has green and pink petals. It's very cool. And then also there's bee balm behind here, is usually you can safely just bend them over until they snap. And boy, does that make it easy. However, anytime it seems like the root is kind of shallow and not holding on very well, I would use pruners instead. But look at how easy it was to get rid of that coneflower. And of course, these are going to be coming up again from the root so that I can enjoy them another year. So I'm doing my little bend the branch till it breaks routine. Look at all this stuff. So here's a whole bunch of bee balm, and they always are easy to snap off at the base. Some of these are a little hard to get to from this angle, but I'll just see what I can get out of the way. I wanted to give you one last example of pruning a rose because you can see I've had kind of some mixed results as to how well they've made it through the winter. Now this is Darcy Bustle, another gorgeous red David Austin English rose right next to Munstead Wood. This plant looks fabulous. There is very little to prune off. So I just want to show you a couple of things. For example, there is a cane in here that is quite black, so I know it has to go. And I'm going to show you a close-up of this. Okay, so look at how black that is. That one is not going to make it, so I had to take it off down at the base. Another thing I wanted to point out is you can see a lot of dead leaves from last year. That is perfectly okay. Most of the time, as you've seen with some of the other plants, the leaves do fall off during the winter months. I think because we had something of a mild winter this time, that's why a lot of these leaves have stayed on. And you know, you just have to pull downward gently and they'll come right off the plant. A little tedious. So I want to prune first because there might be some that have dead leaves on that I don't even need to worry about. But again, what I'm doing is I'm looking first for any of the really discolored or dead branches or canes. And so on this one, I've gone down below where the blotchy dark area is and just above a new sprout that's coming out away from the center of the plant. This rose looks so much better. That one came off because it was going into the center of the plant. There's some dead ones down here on a very old cane. So I'm going to take that off. And this one, I don't like where it's growing. It's heading off towards the center. So I'm going to take it off. And a little bit of the cane that it came off of. I find with pruning roses, you have to kind of take off a few canes, study the plant, take off a few more, and that's really the easiest way to do it. But don't be scared to prune your roses because they will come back. And I'm hoping that these little tips that I'm giving you are helpful and not too tedious. Okay, that rose is finished. And so now I'm going to keep cleaning up the perennials until I get something interesting to show you. Well, I'm happy to say I'm making some good progress. I just need to prune this shrub, which I wanted to talk about in just a moment. I have 2 monster roses left to prune, and I've got some hydrangeas to prune. Now, this shrub is something extraordinary. This is Calycanthus Aphrodite sweet shrub. The first time I saw it, probably on the web, I thought, that is so gorgeous, but there's no way it's going to grow here. And I'll put on the screen what the hardiness zones are for it. It has the most tropical looking leaves and exotic red flowers, and it is so gorgeous. Turns out, yeah, it does grow in my garden, and oh my gosh, do I love it. It is just so beautiful. I realize it doesn't look like much right now. But mainly what I want to do, I like the overall shape of it. I've had it for a few years now. But I have some lower branches that are coming out, trying to go through other plants, and some that are just about ready to start rubbing against the house, and I don't like that either. So I'm going to give a little bit of attention to it, and then I'll move on to those big roses. Sorry about the background noise. We have a neighbor who's having some work done, and they're using these belt sanders that are driving me nuts. Anyway, when you need to prune something that's big like this, definitely use some loppers. So I definitely want to get rid of this one. And there's a big branch there I'm tempted to take off, but I'll get these other ones in the back. Whoops. That's a little better. That's not growing very well. Some of these are really hard to get to. Well, this is the last thing I have to do, which is to carefully trim off these spent hydrangea flowers. I probably should have done that last fall because I think since they kind of catch the wind, they probably were beating up this poor plant. But I'm just going to snip them off, and then I think my project is done. Well, that was quite the project, but I'm so glad to have it done. And I can't wait for the plants to start growing so it looks like an actual flower garden. I hope your gardening projects are coming along well too. Thanks so much for keeping me company today. I'll see you next week. Just my little buddies. And before I go, this is just a friendly reminder that I have a brand new book coming out, the Vegetable Garden Pest Handbook. I wrote it for all levels of gardeners, from beginners to master gardeners. This will help you identify both the good bugs and the bad bugs in your garden and provide you with all sorts of methods for dealing with the bad ones using effective organic controls. This is going to be such a great resource for all gardeners. If you pre-order it now, you will receive special bonus content that is not in the book and can't be found elsewhere. It contains my best tips for growing your favorite veggies and some you might not have thought of. All you have to do is order it from your bookstore or preferred online source and email me your order confirmation. My email address is susan@susansinthegarden.com. Then I'll send you a link to the bonus content. This is a great deal, and thank you.